All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at the beautiful Hayti Heritage Center for Women Run Durham, a Durham County Library Humanities event supported by the Durham Library Foundation. I hope you all are as excited as I am to hear from this panel of leaders joining us tonight. Before we get started, just a couple of announcements. To get to the bathroom, just head back out the same door, straight back to your left. If we have an emergency for some reason, follow the red exit signs and we'll all be good to go. We do ask that everyone wear their mask during the event and social distance so that we can safely enjoy, and that we have respect and courtesy for the speakers on stage so that we all can hear what they have to say. At this time, I'd like to ask any elected officials or public servants in the audience to stand. Thank you for joining us tonight and serving our community. I'd also like to take a moment to thank those who helped bring this event together. This event would not have been possible without the relentless support and guidance of my supervisor, Sarah. I'd also like to thank all the other library and county staff. They answered question after question and helped us to rush this process through to the finish line. The list is too long to name, but they know who they are, and I'm grateful for their help. I want to thank the Hayti Heritage Center for having us in this historic and beautiful building that means so much to the people of Durham, and to Sonic Pie Productions for recording the event for posterity, and to Mr. Steve for taking pictures as well. Lastly, this event would not be happening without the support of the Durham County Library and the funding and support provided by the Durham Library Foundation. The foundation members work hard to support the library, and we are grateful for that. Thank you to each and every one of you for making this possible. Let's give them all a hand. Now to the events. In celebration of Women's History Month, we gather to acknowledge and honor female leadership, something that was not possible very long ago. It was only in 1993 that Durham elected its first female mayor, 1998 for the first female police chief, and 2001 for the first city manager, and so on. All of that is less than 30 years ago. It was just this past year that Durham elected its first African-American female mayor. This is recent history that we're making. This panel of female leaders provides a testament to the resilience of this community and the strides Durham has continually made over time. It is this resilience and growth that made it possible to be here tonight, to hear directly from our own esteemed and noteworthy leaders. We want to welcome to the stage our Durham City Manager, Wanda Page. Chair to the Durham County Board of Commissioners, Brenda Howerton. Chief of Durham Police, Patrice Andrews. Durham County Interim Manager, Claudia Hager. Durham Mayor Elaine O'Neal. And our moderator for tonight, Ms. Amber Rupinta with ABC 11 News. Finally, let me just say, you as the audience and our Durham community are a huge part of what made this possible. Though all of us up here have different professions with different roles, I believe it's safe to say we all do it for the purpose of serving the community. Without you, it wouldn't be possible. So thank you for giving meaning to our work and purpose to our missions. I hope tonight's event captures your curiosity and engages your thought. Ms. Rupinta, it's all yours.
Hey, thank you, Celeste. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here tonight. What a way to kick off Women's History Month, am I right? It's pretty amazing. I have to say, I'm honored to be here. This is inspiring for me. I think as we go through our careers, as we go through life, we always are looking for people that inspire, and this is a very inspiring panel here, and it is truly history. So this is going to be a fun, awesome conversation, and I'm just really looking forward to talking to. I see a lot of you on the news, but a lot of you I haven't met in person. So we follow a lot of it closely through the news. So it's also nice to be back in person here. This has been right. This has been a long time coming for a lot of us. And we were just talking, I think they're dropping the mask mandate in Durham March 7th, indoor, I think, in some places. So looking forward to that, and hopefully we're headed into brighter days ahead. So this will kick off March in a good way. As we go through some of these questions, if you want to follow up, you don't all have to answer each question, and we can just kind of have a conversation, but certainly if you feel like interjecting after, or, please do. So want to start just talking about what does it mean to you and the community that Durham has a full menu of women in leadership, and especially Black women, as we see this is also history here in Durham as well. And we were talking earlier, there could be a lot more people at this table. They just only could have so many for time. So Mayor O'Neal, I wanted to start with you with that question. So what does it mean to you and the community that Durham has a full menu of women in leadership, especially Black women?
Well, I want to say good evening to everybody. Glad to be here tonight with you all. And as I pondered that question, what came to mind is an awe-inspiring moment. But what I think it means for me is that this is becoming normal. It's not going to be a thing. We are normalizing women in positions that we have not traditionally held. And I am so glad that the Bull City is out in front, making it a normal thing for women to be in power.
Anyone else want to chime in on that one?
I will. So it really is no secret that historically women have faced and still face a multitude of injustices and intersecting inequalities. So just to be sitting here on the stage, sharing this space in this historic Hayti Heritage Center in March of 2022 with these women who lead in Durham, North Carolina, is evidence that aspiring to and ascending to leadership positions is possible despite challenges. I am happy, though, to have known the other women leaders invited here tonight for many years, and I will say many. It feels especially good to be among women who share a long history of community service and a love for Durham. For me, working with these women leaders day to day, day in and day out, on complex issues facing our organizations and our community together is a reshaped opportunity to make progress on some of the most pressing challenges of our generation. So as we continue this conversation tonight, this evening, I am sure you will get a glimpse of how our lives of sacrificial service intertwine.
That's right. Brenda, go ahead.
I agree with both the ladies, what they've said so far. I just want to lift up our children as well, our young ladies and our boys as well. To see women in leadership, it means that there's a possibility for them as they grow older and look for what is it that they want to do in their lives, and not be dealing with the stereotypes that women have always been put into, that they could only be in certain roles. So this is very important that we show up as leaders. I mean, I have a 5-member board, county commissioners, all female board. And that's extraordinary. It's the first one in the country. And now we have to give honor to this exciting President Biden nominating Judge Brown for Supreme Court. Momentous leadership that women are doing.
Anyone else?
I was just going to say that there have been so many leaders before us, and we're still, though, having first. And it's just exciting, though, to be in a community that embraces excellence. We're just great leaders who happen to be women. But we can get to the table, whether it's through the election process or through the selection process. So it's just great to be in Durham.
And I'll close out by saying I am always in awe when I sit in the company of these women and the women that aren't here tonight. I will say to you that I give honor to the women that came before me, the strong women who maybe weren't in the newspapers and weren't on the news, but the women that molded me and shaped me and brought me to where I am today. I give honor and thanks to the women that sit here with me right now and the women that are in my life, because those of you that know me know that it takes a village, and Lord have mercy. So I need a village. I'm still growing. And then, to the women that will come after us, I honor them as well. And so tonight is historic to be true, but it's also a glimpse into the future, right? Because we are not a one-off. We are not a blip on the screen. We are here to stay, to inspire and lead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Getting to this position where you are is not easy. At the heart of it is community service. I know that there's a lot of other headaches and things, politics and stuff that comes with that. How important is it for you now to have other females, especially young females in the community, to see so many women leaders? As you said, this is not a blip. This is the way it is. How important is it for those young girls to see that? I mean, and we should also know, the Vice President of the United States is coming to Durham tomorrow, right? And representation does matter for especially, young kids to see people who look like them and to set examples. So how important is it for you that these young people, what they're seeing? But you might want to touch on too, like you said, everybody has mentors or somebody that you saw that you said, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So maybe you can touch on that as well. Was there like that, Oprah says, that aha moment when you realized, hey, I could do that if she's doing that when you were younger? Anyone want to jump in on that?
So if I could just, I will say just in my profession where, the women, we are put into a mold almost as soon as you come in the door. And there's just such tremendous pressure to be like the guys, to be one of the guys. And the fact that you would even have to completely change who you are to be one of the guys, to simply fit in.
Is that in any industry or?
I really do think it's probably in any industry, in different ways, right? But I think the representation matters because one, our young women are able to see that you can do these things. You can do anything you want to do. Doesn't come easy. It's not free, but it surely is worth it, right? Yeah. And also too, it's important to know that you can be who you are. You can be genuine in your truth. For me, it's important that I am very open with young women that I talk to about my failures, about my successes, about lessons I learned the hard way, and about people that molded me and changed me, and also kind of passing those lessons along. We have a responsibility to have a hand at that. And so I think representation does matter. But it also matters that you know that you have a responsibility to pay it forward as well.
Yeah, I remember women only wore dark suits.
Mm-hmm.
Dark
I still
suit?
do. I still do.
Remember?
A little bit today.
But we could only because we had to fit in with the men. So we had to wear either navy suits or black. That was the only, because we had to fit in. We don't have to do that anymore. When I remember becoming the president of the North Carolina Association of Counties, and 80% of the commissioners across the state were males. And that's only been, was in, what was it, 97? 97? So it hasn't been that long ago that women are still not in as many places as they should be. And our young people are looking for themselves. They want to see themselves in their leaders. And for women not to show up in these places that are leaders is just in, what is this, 2022? It just doesn't make any sense. I remember a young person at one of the classes that I was in, and the young lady said, well, so why has it taken women so long? Why are you just getting here? It was a difficult question to answer. Why are you just getting here? I didn't have an answer, other than I'm here now.
Yeah.
Well, I know in the legal profession, when I first started, I'm the only lawyer in my family. And if you know me from Durham, you know I have a very large family in Durham. And so I really didn't have the opportunity to have a mentor at that time. But when I hit the bench at 32, Judge Carolyn Johnson was on the bench, and Judge Karen Bastea Shields was still practicing law, and they immediately embraced me. And so I think it's important that as women, that when others begin to enter into a profession, that we embrace them and that we mentor. So I've always mentored young ladies, encouraged them to go to law school. Sometimes you are going to have to be the one that breaks the glass ceiling, but that's okay. We have to sometimes forge paths that have been made easier by others, but we can still get out there and do it. So it's just important to mentor and be mentored.
So I would just talk a little bit about our uniqueness as women. I believe that as women, we are really uniquely qualified to make certain, to ensure that the young women that we encounter in our community are provided opportunities to make decisions and solve problems. I think we would all agree there are many problems that we face, and the solutions often reside squarely in our youth, in their families, and in the communities that they live in. And I think many young people's understanding of who they are and who they might become is shaped by what they see, what they hear, what they observe, and what they experience. So because of all of that, I believe when some of their role models look like them and also serve in leadership positions of influence, and some would even say power, this can have a positive impact on their lives and on their outcomes.
I know there's a lot of focus, and Chief, maybe you could just touch on this, because I think it's important. I've covered a lot about Apple coming to the area and things like that, and they're being very strategic about making sure that they are going into communities and going into HBCUs now, because it's not even just about hiring, right? It's about exposing, and I know that the police departments do that as well, are very strategic in recruitment and exposing. How important is it to expose? And I obviously, you all are community servants, but for careers and industry, how important is it just in terms of corporate America to make that exposure to the youth, just so they can understand that there's so many fields and help build that confidence? Do you see that when you do the recruiting and the outreach for the police department?
We do, and I will tell you, one of the things is, how do you know if you can't see yourself in the position if you're not exposed to it in some degree? If you don't learn more about the position. And so, one of the things that we are doing with our young girls, because I'm going to tell you, our daughters, our girls, they're in trouble. They are in trouble. And they need to be shown that there is a better way, that there is more to them than just meets the eye. And so when we do programs with them, like our girls' camp, it's really about teaching them life skills and them being their temple, right? So this is their temple. They are valuable. Their mind can take them anywhere that they want to go, right? And certainly teaching them the pathway to get there. And so, we expose them to police officers, and certainly we would love for them to become our future police officers and leaders. But we really just want them to succeed. We really want them to be successful, and what that looks like is certainly up to them, but it's our responsibility to help guide them and mold them in that way. And I think it's tremendously important, and I've said this before, and I've said this to some of our business owners, especially our tech folks, right, out in RTP and things like that. Stop looking across the country for your next talent. Go down the street right here, because we have that talent. I've seen it. I have seen how bright these kids are. I have seen how bright our young people are at North Carolina Central University. I've seen it. They just need that opportunity.
Confidence.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Leadership, the confidence will breed the leadership. I know that this is hard when you are in a position of a leadership position. So talk about your most unexpected hurdle. This is a tough question. You might have to think on this for a second, but as a female in leadership, first it was the clothes. Is there an unexpected hurdle as a female in leadership? I know that's a hard one.
I would say that throughout the journey, from the work experience and the different leadership opportunities, there are hurdles throughout the whole process. And with a hurdle, in order to get over it, you have to jump. And each time you have a hurdle, it may not be as hard to get over it because you've been over it before. And so for me, there have been so many hurdles that have helped me get to this point. And I'm just grateful for the other women who helped showed me, and other men as well, how to navigate those challenges.
I think about the hurdle that I'm facing right now. One of the things that I've struggled with is that I'm pretty much sort of an introverted type person, believe it or not. And so as I've had these positions, there have been lots and lots of media attention. And so right now, I was talking to Judge Evans on the telephone this evening as I was coming over here, and I'm headlines again tonight for my unwillingness to talk about some of the things that I've been doing in light of gun violence. I've been dealing with a lot of young men who I've known for years, and some Judge Evans have known for years, who are basically putting their lives on the line and trying to cross this delicate situation of calming the streets of Durham and dealing with the government. That normally doesn't happen in the streets. So in order to keep them safe and keep things where we're building a relationship, I've taken the position that I'm not going to talk about it. And so I was asking Judge Evans, who knows these guys as well, well, Pat, do I just stand in this mode, or what do I do at this moment in time? And she said, you got to take the Hayti lane. It's all about trying to keep those bodies of our baby boys and our young men from dying in the streets. And right now we're trying to build a relationship. And some people want a story and sensationalize it. Well, that's easy to say until you get the emails, that are, and you see yourself as headlines. But I'm going to hold that line because I realize that it is more important that we try to build a relationship with these young men rather than me getting in front of the mic and telling their stories without their consent. So when you see that, you'll know why. That's the hurdle.
For the record, I did not pitch that story today. I was very against that story today, of all days. So the media is a hurdle. Yeah, I can't even imagine, because I will say, even just being a member of the media, listen, we get attacked, and sometimes you can't even believe it's about, the way you look. These are all the things, but you're literally saying, did you hear a word we were talking about? Did you hear a word? The public is relentless. So I know that is difficult, especially if you're not an extroverted person. I guess the question to follow up that as a journalist, so it's not that you're not doing anything, it's that you're not doing it publicly in front of a microphone. So, yeah, but again, I did not pitch that story today.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, women still, their voices are still not appreciated in our society. The hurdle is always women have to be twice as good, twice as smart, and to get their point across. And that continues in our society, that we face those things every day. Just a little funny, and the elephant in the room is I'm a black woman. And being a black and female is no joke. No joke. And especially when you've got 80% of your organization, not this one, but the one where I was the president, 80% was white males. And when you're sitting with you're sitting in the middle and people all around you, and you've got one male on this side talking past you to the one on this side.
Yes.
But they forgot what I had in my hand. So I just started banging on the table. And banging hard to get their attention. But that kind of disrespect was there. But I got their attention in a way that they didn't do it again. But for me to have to do that as a woman in 2018, it still exists. So what I say to some of our young ladies is, it's not easy to be in leadership when you have to demand respect. You carry yourself in a way that you demand respect.
So-
And women get labeled something very different when they command respect than men.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
you
God forbid, you're ambitious. Because you get a whole nother label, which I will never understand that.
So Amber, sometimes you don't even know there is a hurdle. I have heard it said you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And however, I would say hindsight is 20/20. So for me, I perceive a gap still exists for women leaders to be fully or authentically included in certain professional networks, particularly the informal networks and networking opportunities. Professional relationships are often built in these spaces, including the kind of mentorship and, even more importantly, sponsorship that can frequently lead to career advancement early and often for our male colleagues. But I would say when I encounter a hurdle, it is my instinct to get over it, as Claudia mentioned, instead of going around it or knocking it over. I think that instinct that I have might come from my high school track days. But anyway, I have tried to build both broad networks like professional associations and organizations, as well as smaller networks of women I am close with who I can exchange advice that is specific to the unique challenges that we all face as women.
You know, for me, I'll tell you, obviously there is, so I recall times where I had to prove myself, I had to fight by myself while male officers watched. I had to, so there was that time then. Now, it's a tightrope. I feel like I'm constantly, since we're all family here, I feel like I'm constantly on this tightrope. And I'm trying to not lose officers, my message not to be lost on them because they think that I'm trying to exert power because of what I wear on my collar, right? And that's a tightrope. And I will tell you, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted because we are at a critical moment where the message is everything. The message and the actions are everything. And, and I'm trying to constantly balance that. But here's also what I have found too. I can be my own hurdle sometimes. So I don't always have the greatest confidence, right? And I know that about myself. And I always try to talk to other people when I need to just run something by them to make sure I'm on the right path. I talked to a young officer that was applying for promotion, and this officer said, I just don't think, I've looked at the requirements, I don't really meet what they prefer to see. And I said, okay, but why don't you take a look at what you've done? Because you may not have that certificate or that certification, but what you have done far exceeds what's required by that certification. And one thing that women often do is we talk ourselves out of a position rather than talk ourselves into a position. And then we talk to other people to find out if we talking ourselves out, if we're correct to talk, should I do this, should I not? Men don't do that. Men look at a posting and they go, oh, I don't have that, but I got this, and this, boom, I'm putting in for it. Women sometimes can be very, I don't have this. This comes from the wanting to, we have to be better. We have to come with that, more. But it's, I always say, don't tell yourself no. Let the person doing the hiring tell you no.
Yeah, you might be surprised.
You might be surprised.
There's a lot of self-elimination before you even get in the game.
Correct.
Yeah. I did that to myself early on in my career, and my husband said, what's your goal? And back then everyone would say, no, I'm going to work in New York. And I was in a smaller market, and he said, have you applied? Do they know you're alive? No. But, it was like, and then you know what he actually did say? He said, Kobe Bryant went straight to the NBA out of high school. Do not eliminate yourself. Apply. And I ended up a job in a number 4 city. I couldn't believe it, but it was like you have to rewire the way you think.
Rewire, exactly.
So getting to this point where we are today, I want to touch on, especially these last couple of years, we'll call them a lot of movements, right? There's been Me Too. There's been a lot of social justice movements in the last couple of years of the pandemic. How do you think any of those big shifts, did that play a role in elevating women, minorities up into positions? I mean, obviously, I know that it took a lot for us to get here today, and going forward, like, where do you see, we can just focus on Durham, we don't have to focus on, the bigger picture, but I feel that as those moments happen in history, there's a big shift that happens with those. So how do you think we got here?
Well, having been in Durham and never lived anywhere else, that's the only thing that I can kind of relate to. Like has been mentioned tonight, there were so many who came before us. When I think about Marion Black, when I think about Jeannie Lucas, when I think about Dr. E. Lavonia Allison, when I think about Hazel Rich, some names you may not even know, but there were so many women who were already out there and had been out there for a long time. So I think Durham has really been special in that regard, which is why I think we're all here tonight and we're kind of leading in that area. I believe that we've always been leaders in the area of diversity, which relates back to, Hayti and the Wall Street and the 150 businesses that we had. I think that particularly in the Black community, we kind of lost a lot of it with 147, of course. But I think that we have always had a very rich history of strong Black women in Durham, and now you're seeing the results and the fruits of that labor. But so many have paved the way. I could go on and on with names.
And just I want to add on to that, so many Black women have gotten to be leaders out of pain, out of anger that they see what's happening to their community, to their children, to their families. You know, the last several years, all the murders of Black and brown folks across the country impacted our communities. And so many women said to themselves, I need to do something. I can't keep sitting back and saying, it's not time yet. The time is now. And they chose to put themselves where they knew they could lead. So I think history will show that a lot of women chose to step up out of what's happening in our country.
Anyone else want to chime in on that one? How do you think we got where we are today here in Durham? And what do you think about going forward?
Well, as Judge O'Neal shared and Commissioner Howerton, Durham has always been diverse. But at the same time, there were some stats that were shared about leaders that have come before us. And the first city manager that was a woman was over 20 years ago. And so now we have our second city manager that's a woman. And for the County of Durham, our first permanent manager that's a woman will soon start.
Yes.
And so we are so fortunate that paths have been made before us. To your point, I do believe because of the environment in Durham, we will see incremental change and consistency with leaders that are women in these prominent roles happening on an ongoing basis. It's not going to take another 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would agree. I think that, you know, this is just building upon Durham's own destiny, right? You know, and I think Durham is leading the way in so many things, so many things. Yes, we have some hurdles, but ultimately, this is the future, right? It is our past that has brought us here to this moment. It is the things that are happening around our country that is shaped and molded our leadership in Durham. You know, for me, being the parent of two beautiful children, you know, I'm a mother. I'm a mother to beautiful Black children. You know, I have a personal interest in changing this profession. You know, and that is my goal and my responsibility. I have that responsibility to my children, but also children that are in this community, that we change the narrative, right? That we change the narrative. I have a responsibility to my parents, right? My mother didn't have me just to be mediocre. You know, and my father, both my parents haven't instilled values in me just to do nothing with. I have a responsibility to carry on the legacy that my father has created here in this city. The foundation, I have a responsibility.
It's so hard to see with the masks. I'm like waiting, like, did you want to talk? I can't see your expression. So, from your professional perspective, what are the greatest challenges for Durham at this time?
I'll start. I won't take them all, though. So, as Durham City Manager, there are things that I engage with that are community-wide as well as internal to our organization, to our government. I would say sort of permanent recovery from the pandemic, specifically the longer-term impacts of what we have gone through over the last couple of years, both the crisis with our health and our wellness, and just almost forgetting in some ways, even just being in having an audience like this and speaking before them, just getting back to some of the things that seem to be a far memory. And those, it is important for us to help, our economy recover, and some of the pieces that, that keep us sort of in balance, to continue to happen and take us into our new normal. So for me, in my professional role, it is participating in effective recovery from this pandemic. Certainly, I don't want to take them all because I know there are a lot, but affordable housing and sustainable jobs, for the residents that live here, that is really, really, really a challenge that we have here, and we all have to have all hands on deck as we work to create solutions for that challenge. And then I would want to mention one internal, and that is because I lead an organization of over 2,600 full-time employees, and recruitment and retention of employees during the Great Resignation is an extreme challenge, and it can happen in organizations with 5 people in them as well. But we are all trying to make our resources match the outcomes that we're trying to deliver, and that is a great challenge. So,
Amen.
So I'll go next. And over here.
how about partner?
Partner, that's fine too, either way. This pandemic showed up what was already there. It showed up the mental health, the crisis around housing. It showed up so many needs in our community. And it's just really just put it in our faces where we cannot ignore it. That not just elected officials, but as a community, that there's so many issues to address, and this divide that we have in this community has to be addressed. So, Durham does a good job, but I see the challenge is how do we address these needs, and how do we do them in a collaborative manner that we work together, because it's not a lack of resources, and I have to be careful of being an elected official how I say that, but it is not that. It is how we choose to use the resources, and how we're accountable to constituents about using tax dollars. There are so many things that, in a conversation today about transit. That is a huge conversation, and that is huge dollars. But then people that don't have food in their house, the children are going without food and don't have a place to live, transit is not a concern for them. So the needs are great. So I just believe that this community can address those needs when we work together.
After spending 24 years on the bench and seeing human drama, a lot of times the very worst of human drama on a daily basis, that was one of the things that stuck in my mind to come back on this new assignment, is to make sure that we make visible things or people who have been invisible. A lot of people choose not to see, I think in a lot of instances, or kind of avoid our most distressed citizens, you know. And it's a very different world on those streets, and we have a lot of hurting people out there. And the pandemic has highlighted a lot of that. But in a lot of instances, people look to the government or the public service organizations to take care of that. And it's bigger than that. It has to be neighbors caring about neighbors. You know, it's too big for the 2,600 employees that the city has, the employees that the county has. It's much bigger than that. We've lost our sense of community. And that wasn't the Durham that I grew up in. Now, I didn't realize that we were living in low wealth until later on in life. But in my neighborhood of the West End, we all knew each other. My brothers and sisters could go up and down each street and tell you which family lived where. People in the neighborhoods, they offered, my grandmother offered a sewing class to the young ladies. You know, your churches were really active in the communities. We did all kinds of things. That's not happening for a lot of people in Durham right now. They're very isolated, and they are hurting. And what you see, what becomes visible to most, is when they are living in where they have to survive through an economy. And in that economy, guns become their trades, their tools of the trade. And people don't understand that you're asking people, and the streets will say, like I heard in Patrice's office the other day, they get it out of the mud. You know, they survive out of the mud because there's no opportunity for them to become a part of a society that they want. You have a lot of young people who, by the age of 18, figure out that they can never have a piece of the American dream. You have a lot of people that I've met over the many years who've never had a stable house. Never. You know, because we don't even count them a lot of times. You know, when you're a felon, you fall off the housing grid. You know, nobody's allowing you to apply for a job or get a house. That's real for people. And so we can't just arrest that away. We can't incarcerate that away. We have to really help people where they are. And that takes a neighborhood. That takes a community of caring individuals who are not afraid to go out and say, look, I want to help. I need to help. Tell me what I can do to help. And I'll be offering some of that in my State of the City address, which is coming soon, to ask you to do 2.5 to 5 hours of community service a week in your neighborhood. See a neighbor that you didn't see before. Let us learn how to see each other. And not only that, be kind and do something to help.
Amen.
The sense of community in the pandemic has been terribly challenged. I mean, I know it was always a problem. The pandemic did shine a spotlight on so many of the inequities and the issues that so many communities face, especially here in Durham. So, Mayor O'Neal, would you say that is what you would want Durhamites to do going forward, to uplift the community, as you said, challenge?
Yes, you know, it's just something as simple as I've watched the streets of Durham. It's been interesting to me to see how dirty Durham has gotten with the trash. You know, it's like litter everywhere.
You think that's more in the pandemic, with the pandemic?
I think that, yeah,
it is.
I think it is. And it's like, some of this stuff is what I consider low-hanging fruit. You know, clean up the streets. You know, pick up the trash. Does 147 have to have trash all the way down? You know, it's just, really, you know, do we really have to do that?
I'm gonna be driving home looking for the trash.
Right. Pay attention and just kind of notice. And so we're gonna start, you know, I'm talking to them about trying to help keep Durham beautiful and starting a really intensive littering campaign. That's kind of low-hanging fruit. Just don't litter. That's a start. But the other thing is we got to remember that our kids are hurting. And by Zoom, there's so many innovative things that you can do in terms of mentoring and helping our teachers. You know, a lot of these things they are not equipped to deal with, nor do they have the time. They're educators. And a lot of these kids, they just need somebody to talk to. You can do that on the internet now. You don't have to go on somebody's home. You can read to a classroom online, you know.
That's right.
So it's simple stuff. Just show up and being in the place, people just saying, I care. That means a lot. It really means a lot.
I would echo so much of what's been said. As a mother of a 12-year-old who's in the audience,
Raise your hand.
that's my
There he
son.
is.
Good, thank you for being here. I should have brought my little 13-year-old.
You know, our household has been through a lot. So many of the families in our community have been through a lot. The pandemic has been hard, and to Judge O'Neal's comments, some families don't have a support system. We have to take care of each other. This next generation, they need us. They need us to be less selfish and spend some time. And I appreciate you saying that. My husband passed from cancer about 4 years ago. He was the one in the house that helped with homework, that helped with math, and then William got stuck with me. And so, and so when the pandemic came, oh boy, was it stressful. But others did help. But it has now changed my mindset and what I can do with others to help them as well. The simple step, as you said, of just picking an hour a week and letting a child read to you. Most of our children are at least 1 or 2 grade levels behind, especially because of this pandemic. And if we don't change the trajectory, they will not thrive. And so it's up to us. This is our future. If we want Durham to continue to stay strong, we have to make sure we are supporting our families, and we're a little bit more in tune to each other, and make sure that these children have what they need, and all they need really is more attention and love.
So I will just kind of wrap it up. So for me and, well, for the police department, you know, violent crime. I mean, violent crime, right? We see the worst of humanity. And what really just hits me in my gut is when what we see is preventable. What we see is preventable. And our victims and those that are perpetrating these crimes, when I tell you they're babies, they're getting younger and younger and younger. And so, no, we definitely cannot arrest our way out of crime, because what we know is crime is the symptom of really the root. And, you know, when you call folks out to come and fix your tree because your tree has something kind of yucky on it, you know, and it's a beautiful tree and the tree is dying, you know, you can't just cut the limb off and say, oh, it's fine. No, there are things that they have to do, and they get to the root, and they want to put things around the root and all these. That's how you heal the tree, right? It's going to take some work. And, you know, we at the Durham Police Department, we are dedicated, as you all are, to putting in that work, because we do know that, yes, we can enforce, but it's not doing anything to heal the people that have been traumatized, that if left unchecked will create another generation of people that will offend. Right? And we get it's exhausting. I cannot, you know, I talked to a mother actually out at a scene. Her son had been killed. And I talked to her across the crime scene tape. I knew her son was laying right there. 45 minutes to an hour, she and I talked. And I felt like I had known her forever. But there was nothing that I could do to bring him back. And I knew that what caused this to happen was totally preventable. Totally preventable. And Lord knows she was doing all that she could do. And the guilt that she will always carry with the feeling of not having done enough, that's something that no parent should ever feel. But what I do know is that they need support. There are 2 Durhams. I've often heard my mayor say, there are 2 Durhams. There are 2 Durhams. And until all of Durham thrives, none of Durham will thrive.
Brenda, Wanda, we have just a couple minutes left because I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Did you want to give some final thoughts about what Durhamites could do going forward to help in this community? Or just final thoughts in general?
Just got me.
I'm
You just got me.
I'm sorry.
You know, when we talk about our children, I'm hooked. I'm just, I'm a mom, and I love our children. You know, from 0 to 5, the prenatal, I've been having this conversation, and I've got another panel coming up pretty soon about prenatal to 5, about our little ones. We got to start with our little ones, and you know, it's both ends that we have to work. We've got pre-K at the county that we're working to support, and support education, and working with the mayor and her initiative. There is just so much to do. And there are so many people in Durham that want to do things. So, you know, we, as elected folks in government, we need your help. We need your voice. We need your votes. You need to vote. We need all of that involvement. Durham is a very participatory community. Durham gets in there. You know, every time I go out of Durham and people talk to me about Durham, they say, Durham just kind of gets in there, don't they? Yeah. Yeah, but that's Durham. So it's a matter of all of us working together, and you know, gentrification is serious. And when you have so many people sleeping in the streets, sleeping wherever they can, their children attached to those persons. And when you got kids that don't have a place to sleep, don't have food, doing stupid stuff to end up dead. No, there's a proverb, African proverb. If you want to know how a community is doing, ask the question, how are the children? If you can't answer that question, that means our community is in trouble. Yeah, thank you.
Well said. Wanda, final thoughts?
Yes, I will only add just a few words. And the question that you posed about active, what can the community actually do? Take a more active role to uplift, and that's stuck in my head because you know, we can talk about a lot of things, we can dream about a lot of things, we can strategize about a lot of things, but as you have heard the mayor speak tonight, as well as others, there are things within our own sphere, within our own reach, that we can actually actively do to make a difference in the lives of the kids, the youth, our whole community. And sometimes we feel like, you know, that small thing might not matter. You know, reading that story or having someone read to me, that might not matter much. But small things add up to big things. And if we don't start being active and thinking about being active every day, doing something to help uplift our community, the live, work, and play that we think about when we think about Durham being the great place to live, work, and play, it's going to escape some, and it has already escaped from some. And I think that there's enough of us in this community, almost 300,000 plus of us, and if we all did something active every day toward these goals that we all know about, they're quality of life goals that we all aspire to ourselves. So we know what they are. But we got to do something. We got to take responsibility and be accountable for doing those active acts of kindness, of support that uplift this community that we all love.
We're going to leave it there for time purposes, but we had so much more I wanted to talk about the gentrification, about all the people coming here, affordable housing, so we'll save it for another panel. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your honesty, your insight. I think there was some comments, yes, about what we're going to do after, but thank you. Let's give our panel a round of applause.